What's going on, everybody out there? Hope everyone's having a fantastic Tuesday. See a lot of familiar faces in the chat. Just hit over 104, 105, 190 million pretty soon. Thanks for joining me today. I got the two Fox Planning Commission sitting in back right now, waiting to get pulled up to explode your minds with valuable information on how to create the most juicy incentive structure ever created and known to mankind. I find the Fast Abdoul character to be particularly amusing and an amazing piece of the PulseChain pie. And so he's teaming up with probably one of the smartest chaps I've had the privilege of talking to. Very sharp, very on the edge, has a lot of experience in a lot of different subsectors of cryptocurrency, and has taken that knowledge to help build out this balancer fork. Actually, it's he'll tell you more about it. I think it was like some other name, but it reminds me. The water comes to mind. But so they have a really cool project coming along. Long-standing members in the community, unique in their own ways, probably complement each other in a lot of ways. So I'm excited to get to talk to them a little bit. I think the big question here on everyone's mind is, at least for me, is, is the DEX market getting too competitive? And what I mean by that is, you got PulseX, you got PHUX, you got 9-inch, which just started ripping. You got 9mm provide V3. Rumors are that 9-inch will bring V3 online. You got Freedom Swap making a V3 DEX. And then you got 2Fucks coming in with this upgrade to Balancer. Where does this all lead for PulseChain, and is the DEX market getting too saturated, or is competition a good thing? Something I think we're going to figure out today, as well as we'll probably look into this different reasons why 2Fucks might be attractive for different reasons, and some of the opportunities that are there, and like what these guys would like to see out of the protocol in terms of rewarding users, creating good game theory, and what kind of pools they would want to see on the platform. And then at the end of the show, or toward the middle of the end of the show, I'm going to start asking them the tough questions about like what their thoughts on the P copies and what makes a good narrative, and like what's their favorite ticker of the RH coins, and then maybe at the very, very last few moments we'll do a little demo, give you guys an idea of what's going on over there. I know it's super fast, which is much appreciated. I know a lot of these other DEXs are kind of slow, so. Anyways, without further ado, I'm bringing on the champions, Yellow Cake and Fast Abdoul. How's everyone doing today?
Good. How you doing, Axis?
I'm doing great, man. Glad to have you guys on, and you're both smart dudes that have a lot of good things to say, so I'll probably spend most of the time asking the questions or provoking and prodding to the best of my ability. So if without further ado, welcome in. Any starting comments, things you wanted to address before we get going?
Where's your suit jacket?
Hanging up in the closet.
Fair enough.
I did think about it because I knew you guys were going to wear it. You guys always show up with the threads, so I did consider it, but yeah, not today. Maybe
we're old. You can pull it off.
So maybe next time.
Cool.
All right. So what else? Is DEX competition helpful, healthy? And kind of where's the niche that you guys are trying to fill with 2Fucks? What's your thoughts on this whole this concept?
I can start that one there first. Well, one thing that this DEX competition is everywhere, right? That's one of the first things you see pop up on new chains, new L1s. DEX is everywhere, but in the case of PulseChain, with these sort of communities surrounding these DEXs and all coming together right at this point in time, it's really like creating this amazing infrastructure base and DeFi that is not going anywhere on PulseChain, right? Like we're basically set up now for infrastructure layer to go, and when the chain grows and when the growth happens, we're going to have like a really robust, larger community. There isn't, there's healthy competition and unhealthy competition, but it's like, as Richard Hart always mentioned, like where you would build a McDonald's on a corner and a Burger King across the street isn't necessarily a bad thing, because that's where you go to get your fast food, right? And you go and get these places. But the big differentiation between two fucks is being built on top of this balancer V2, which has its own its own narrative and its own unique qualities. So I'm not scared of I don't see it as competition. I see it more as we're building this amazing infrastructure layer on PulseChain. What are your thoughts there, Fast?
Well, these dexes don't all do the exact same thing, and I think that's a serious consideration. First off, with PulseX, which is it's the start of the show. It's where the liquidity started. It's where the P copies went to. We all understand that, but it doesn't do that much, or not as much as we thought it would. So these other dexes are filling the spots, and you have things like 9-inch that are doing that. 9mm being a fork of Uniswap V3, clearly that has a place in the ecosystem. The place that the Flux Exchange has is the place that Balancer has, because it's a fork of Balancer. And that's the place where most of the stable coins are likely destined or currently do live. Balancer being kind of a fork of Curve is made for things like stable coins. It's made for multi-asset pools that can have up to 8 tokens, which none of the other dexes do. It's much more complicated, and it has a lot more game theory attached to it. So I think these all have a place. And obviously, we like the Flux Exchange, we like the Balancer format, but the concept of just good old Uniswap or PancakeSwap V2 with 50-50 pools, that has a place in the ecosystem. That's a great place for balanced liquidity. It's a great place for founders of tokens to put some liquidity, at least, to give balanced pools and good visibility in the ecosystem. So I think that to have these different products filling different niches is an important distinction versus all competing with each other, right?
Yeah, 100%.
9-inch guys are pushing the meme thing, right? PulseX, not so much the meme thing, more just the base, right? And then Flux in particular is that's kind of the business exchange in a lot of ways, though I think that could change in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with you that they're each doing their own part. You can segment them down, systematize them, categorize them into different, and each one is doing its job. And in this case, the thing that Flux and 2Flux do that the rest of the exchanges don't do is it actually brings a certain level of stability to the market that you otherwise just can't get, and which is the ability to, for example, pair up 3 stable coins together in a single pool to create a stronger bond and a stronger dollar backing on the entire network. So that's an obvious one that should be rewarded heavily for, because if we don't have a good, strong dollar backing on PulseChain, then these valuations don't really mean much. So, and you can take that game theory to the nth degree, depending on the goals and motives of each pool operator. And it's exciting when thinking game planning in the back with you guys about the possibilities of some of these other pools that could come online and how you could affect different sub ecosystems within the chain by incentivizing and rewarding specific behavior from the market and bonding things, and things abstracted away. But when you really break it down, yeah.
And that's one of the things that when I use the term infrastructure layer, I think a lot of people don't realize how much 2Flux can be built on top of. And there's because the EIP 4626, I believe, is the standard that allowed some really interesting things to be done with liquidity pools that a lot of people don't even know about yet. And once people discover that 2Flux isn't an end, but it's an infrastructure layer where things can be built on top of, that's where we're going to really start to see some innovations and interesting things happen. And we're hoping to bring in other communities and people such as yourself that can bring some of your innovations into the 2Flux ecosystem and be able to innovate by using this infrastructure layer. One example would be, as you were mentioning, having an algorithm that basically rewarded a specific thing outside, like in a market behavior, that could have an effect within the 2Flux protocol itself. So there are some really interesting things we're working on, but there's also a lot of opportunities that are going to come be apparent.
Since you brought it up, it's we're just about to hit 300 live, so it's you guys are here for the juice. As a person that has an expertise in markets and charting and liquidity provision, and knowing how to make a market and knowing about human psychology to some extent, maybe not as much as somebody like a Richard Hart or a Justin Sun or some of these guys that have been in the game for like a decade. But, you know, getting my bearings and being able to look at that and understand tokenomics and think about how can we create value outside of 2FUCks that directly ties into the incentive structure to get you guys to do the right thing on the chain. And if you add things like a time component or certain sort of value transformation outside of the protocol that is one-to-one tied into the incentive structure, you can have amazing outcomes. And so if you just follow the logic there, I mean, I know this is really super high level, but if you follow the logic there, there's ways to build out the liquidity in the way that's best for the most number of users using a protocol like this. So I guess I'll leave it there. Any comments on that fast?
Well, I think the concept of incentivizing people to do what you want them to do via bribes of one type or another is something I'm very interested in. So, you know, I think we're on top of that. I think I'll take this as a small segue to just sort of tell people what 2FUCks is. I've detailed FUCks is a fork of Balancer, can have 8 tokens. 2FUCks is a fork of something called Aura Finance, which is a fork of something called Convex that helps people pool together their FUCks tokens so that they can all get boosted yield up to 2.5 times as much yield as they get by themselves on the FUCks exchange. So that's pretty interesting to a lot of people. And we're talking interesting numbers. Like there's definitely potential for 200% plus APR, sometimes much, much more. And Yellow Cake can display that in a bit. But it also gives people additional voting power, which is an activity that we want to incentivize in the ecosystem, because the only thing they're voting on is money, on which pools get the most yield, right? So if for founders and whales and people who are community members and they want a particular pool to pay out more, which not only incentivizes people to provide liquidity, but it gives them another token to sell, which in this case would be the FUCks token or the 2FUCks token, that is not the token that they are providing liquidity for. That is a pumpamental that cannot be forgotten. And that's something that 2FUCks is going to bring to the ecosystem. And it's going to help focus that power, the voting power and the yield boosting power, so that the average user can basically stake like a whale, right? Like if we have $1 million worth of FUCks tokens permanently locked in our protocol, when you stake through 2FUCks, it's like you are a FUCks whale that has $1 million of FUCks tokens in your wallet, right? That's, you know, that's a vague description, but that's basically the main concept of the boost that we provide along with the extra tokens.
Is it fair to call this like a crowd? It's like almost like crowdfunding what the market wants in a way, because you're sourcing.
To use the term social aggregator. So, you know, it kind of describes it using a couple words, but like the social aggregation of voting power. So we're all achieving more by working together in some fashion. And that's because we're sharing that large pool of voting power. Is kind of the way I like to look at it in a simple term. But
this is good. And so then this leads me into like the first major question, which is the initial distribution of voting power is via the sacrifice, correct?
Well, the sacrifice is for points, so we can't make promises on that. But
of course,
but put it this way: like 100% of the voting power is in the hands of the 2FUCks lockers. So in that respect, all the initial token supply that'll be distributed on the token generation event will go into the hands of the holders that have the ability to lock it to direct 100% of the votes that are available on the protocol. So in that respect, you might have only 50% of the people decide to lock because some may want to provide liquidity to earn other incentives in other ways. But then that portion of people that lock still get to steer 100% of the votes on the protocol.
Okay. And so this has certain implications, at least early on, until those coins become distributed amongst the market as the market, as PulseChain as a whole, as the market adopts the 2FUCks protocol and sees the value in that ability to buy votes and gain votes, get bribes, to push different sub-communities' agendas or different attention or economic benefit to specific sectors or pools. And so I think it would only be appropriate to share my screen and just kind of go over that sacrifice set shortly here, and then maybe look at, do we see anything particularly interesting here? Looks like there's been 1.1 million sacrifice from 262 wallets. So this is interesting. The last update looks like this morning, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when does this end?
Ends in Thursday at midnight UTC. Or, well, I guess that would be Wednesday at midnight UTC. Our time, it's like, Thursday evening-ish.
So this is important, guys. Like if you're looking at this leaderboard, if you have a project or you're part of a sub community and you want to get something, if you want to get power in a new system that you can then give your community more value in the term of yield and rewards from this system to pump into your ecosystem or your sub ecosystem, then you'd probably want a spot on the top 10 on this leaderboard. So this is a call to action that if you think that this could be valuable, you have until Thursday to make a move. Now, I noticed right away that, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, Axis, if you take a look at that top wallet there, I'm curious if you recognize it.
Yeah, I was just about to go right into that. So you read my mind, which is that I recognize this 3146 wallet address. And if, a lot of these guys know this 146 wallet address as the Flywheel. So this already has certain implications about what kind of ecosystems is going to have a lot of voting power right up front.
Yeah, there are the right types of people aligning their values with the Tufux protocol, and we're really building a real good subset of communities that are choosing to work together, and that's evident by there is actually like a community bonus allotment of points where people can end their sacrifice in a particular code, which will direct bonus points apart from your regular allotment of points to the community that you are part of, or that you will likely be participating in a liquidity pool. So these points will forever be pointed at that pool and directing emissions at that pool. And we can see by looking at the sacrifice set that there is a good collusion of communities working together. And this is what we want to see for Tufux. We want to see the infrastructure layer comprised of communities that are wanting to learn how to generate yield, sustainable yield, responsible yield, but also to accelerate their yield by working together. And there's ways.
It's a way to leverage something valuable to benefit a certain sector of PulseChain's sub-communities. And that's a good thing, which gets me interested to talk a little bit about the emissions rate, the base emissions rate of the reward. Economics matter, and so that keyword sustainable is evident that you guys have thought about, what is appropriate. I'm just looking through this as I'm talking, but what is appropriate level of rewards to give out so that you don't end up with a dump forever type situation where, and knowing and with that, knowing this top sacrificer is to be a benevolent actor and provably on chain, it probably should make you feel a little better about who's getting a majority of this voting power and their willingness or likeness to act maliciously or predatory. So anything you can comment on in terms of the emissions or how that works? I know it gets technical, but maybe we can talk about how that is sustainable long term.
Yeah, I can take that there. Well, essentially, one thing that's noteworthy is we're on a maximum supply that is capped at 10 billion tokens, which matches the FUX supply. And we're on an emissions curve that's going to match the point in time when we launch to the point in time where Fux.io, the balancer fork, is at. So in that respect, our starting supply will be around 7.2 billion tokens, with future emissions remaining of the 2.8 billion on a curve. But where this gets interesting is that when Fux.io launched, they had an accelerated first year of emissions. So this people whose values align with ourselves and are eligible to mint the tokens are going to receive basically that whole year's worth of accelerated rewards from the initial mint. So we're starting out from a point where the people that are involved with bootstrapping the 2Fux community are going to be the ones that are going to be, in a good position to keep the ball rolling. And where the utility and the functionality comes in with the 2Fux token is not just because it's a governance token that allows you to direct emissions to a pool, but there's also going to be additional utility in that it is a token that's going to be sought after to be able to farm in pools that have special circumstances or special tokens emitted that require you to be holding or using some of the 2Fux tokens to be able to farm those, much in the same way that some of the other farming pools on other dexes have ways of incentivizing the use of their token. It's really a utility token primarily as a governance token. It's the things you can do, but there's also utility where I'll let Fast talk about the bribe incentives. So there's actually a marketplace that develops for, because you have the token itself, but then you have the votes that are attached to it are actually a separate component that you can keep to yourself, or you can delegate to to an external party.
So is it safe to say that there's this is a two compartmentalized two partitions of value from the same thing? Part of it is the native thing that you're holding in your wallet, and the other portion of that is something that you can delegate away to gain further revenue stream potentially, right?
Yeah, if you look at it like a governance aspect, there's unlimited things you could do, with attaching to the ability to have those votes, or whatever you want to call it, those delegated points. Now, where it gets really interesting is when you look at the marketplace that naturally develops, because you have something called bribe efficiency, where if you can calculate that by spending $1 to buy some votes that directs emissions to your pool, and that brings in $2 of yield, right there, it makes sense, and it's going to make sense on day one, right? So I'll let Fast maybe talk about the bribe aspect of things, because it is an interesting value proposition that is unique to.
There's lots of games and there's lots of strategies we can work with that, right? And one of our basic concepts of 2Fux is something that'll lend itself really well to strategies, because it's like giving people boosted yield, but it also gives them this voting power, and the voting power is very directly worth money. And we're making that for sure be a thing by launching a second protocol. It'll probably be about a month after, but we don't make any promises. It's on the white paper. We're calling it bribery. It'll be bribery.io. We've already secured that. And it'll basically allow people to sell their votes that they have in the 2Fux ecosystem for bribes. And the bribes can be put up by anybody. Likely they'll be put up by founders and whales from specific communities that want to incentivize people to vote for their pools on the Fux exchange using the 2Fux voting power. And they can put up that bribe in any token that we approve. So just for example, were we to say that the solid index would be on the Fux exchange, and that people could put up a bribe in the form of the Axis token or the Nope token or the Solid X token or the Fire token to incentivize people to vote for that very pool. If you were a Axis token maxi and you could get a bonus in the form of the Axis token to vote for the pool that incentivizes the Axis token, you would probably do that. But the more interesting thing is if you weren't an Axis token maxi, and then you could spend your vote and get some Axis token. And then, well, you might become an Axis token maxi. You would see that the community was engaged, that they were willing to put their money where their mouth was. And that, you could tell that this pool is going to be well incentivized because people are, pushing votes towards it. So I think that vote leaderboard in the form of the bribery website is going to be something to keep an eye on when you can see that, wow, these guys are putting up a big bribe. There's lots of people voting for this and so on and so forth. Like you can tell the future, like next week, that pool is going to have lots of votes.
This idea of monetizing governance or voting power is super powerful. And it reminds me a lot of a parallel system called domain names, where people buy domains and they lease those domains out to other parties, or they sell them for a much higher price tag down the line. Like 3 and 4 letter domains go for multi-million dollars. And so if you think of this protocol as you're getting stake or you're getting real estate in the future of one of the most prominent dexes that has all these extra layers of granularity and value baked into it, I mean, those layers are going to stack and they're going to be sticky, and they're going to create a situation where you can create this citadel of value, and it's going to really work. It's going to be like a waterfall cascading its way down to the smallest little guys. But initially, all the opportunities up front, which is why I'm trying to I think coming together today and kind of explaining the nuance of the system, and the layers of the cake, so to speak, and peeling back the onion is important, something that hasn't been done on any of the other streams, because this is what we do here is we break down the tokenomics and how you guys are trying to do something different here, and give people opportunities that no one really else has yet. And so that's pretty cool. I think this is the first time it clicked for me, and it was immediate. As soon as you started to talk about how bribery is going to work and the ability to it's like a resale for something that is a yielding mechanism built into it. It's very sticky and interesting to me, and especially the fact that you can motivate people with non-native tokens to the DEX. That is super interesting, right?
For sure.
And it reminds me of pools, like single-sided staking or BBC pools on 9inch, stuff like that, but in its own way that actually is more abstracted away by the voting power that you're buying off somebody. So, man, that's exciting stuff. Cool.
And noteworthy for people that aren't maybe as familiar with the infrastructure, like Balancer V2 was the first to use a governance token as an emissions token, like you were explaining. And there is a finite supply, like I said, on an emissions curve. So starting out, and so the question about sustainability often comes up. But as we mentioned, like with 2FUX, it's not it's not the end. It's actually, sort of a beginning, in the sense that the 2FUX token, being a governance token, can have the ability to do a lot of other things. And when things are built on top, like for example, the ability to add a secondary reward token, where the 2FUX token would play a key role in achieving this, or unlocking these additional things, right? As well as allowing the bootstrapping community to retain voting control over the protocol they help bootstrap. So there's a lot more to the token than just what appears on the surface. But the other part is, as I mentioned, the lion's share of the supply will be emitted or minted on the token generation event, and then the emissions are going to be matching Fux.io's close to pro rata on their same emissions curve. So the emissions that are coming into the pool are both for the liquidity providers, are both in the 2FUX token as well as the FUX token. And then the stakers of the prime version of our token will earn the additional rewards that you would natively get from Fux.io. So you're going to be getting actually the prime FUX token, a share of the revenue stream from 2FUX paid out in the FUX token, and additional 2FUX tokens. So there's a lot going on in terms of the protocol and ways to participate in this flywheel. So it wasn't our brainchild. It was this protocol was engineered by a whole community, and it was battle tested and refined to prove that it works, and it brings engagement. But primarily, the reason why it works is because people, without owning a single protocol token are incentivized to come and use it. And that benefits the people within the protocol. And the reason they're incentivized is because just by routing the liquidity through our front end versus doing it on your own, if you didn't have any locked voting power, you could still benefit from the voting power that's on 2FUX. So this incentivizes people to route their liquidity through, which benefits the volume and the incentives to the people that are vested in the protocol. And then once people realize that it works, then there's a tendency to look at these other moving parts and participate, because it is designed to benefit the community, not just the not just the protocol founders.
Do you want to talk a little bit about how this looks like on Ethereum and how that Aura, right? Or what was it? It was Aura?
Aura Finance, yeah.
How much of the market share did Aura take from Balancer?
Huge. But it's not that they took it, right? Because it's built on top. So just like with 2FUX, like we're not vampire attacking FUX. All the liquidity ultimately stays on
layered,
the FUX
right?
exchange.
So it's staying on PHUX, and you're just creating an extra incentive layer, right? That's big.
It's a front end that gives you better options, better yield, better voting power,
Gotcha.
And an additional token with additional utility. So, two additional tokens with the Prime 2FUX token as well, potentially. So, that's, if we look at Aura Finance versus Balancer, it was doing essentially the same thing, and it didn't take the share, but what it did do is it took the voting power. And right now, about 3 years in, Aura Finance has 65% of the total Balancer voting power, right? Which is huge. Like you're talking about a lot of money, and it's the same system as the FUX exchange. You're voting on which.
It seems like this is going to push whales to force whales to work together.
Yep.
Because the incentives are so good.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it very quickly it will gain control, and it snowballs, right? It's not that Aura Finance didn't have 65% on day one. It would have had 0% on day one, moment one. And just using the protocol, and that'll be the same with 2FUX. When people use the protocol, it automatically builds more FUX that's permanently locked inside the protocol. And we're starting earlier than them, we're starting faster, and we're probably starting bigger. So to say that we would hit 65% of the FUX exchange in a shorter time frame, maybe 6 months, maybe 1 year, is not a crazy idea to me. It's just an idea. We're not promising anything, but that's going to be a big deal. So when we get to the top of the bull market, and these pools are very interesting, and there's people who are very interested in all the tokens involved, right? Be it the yield tokens, the DAO tokens, or just the pool tokens, like the LP tokens that people are participating with. Like, this will be a big deal. So if we do end up controlling that percentage of the voting power, man, like, wouldn't you like to have a piece of that? Especially when you can sell your vote for bribes, or you can you can put it to wherever you want to incentivize an entire community. Because when you vote for one of these pools, you're not just pumping your own bags, you're pumping the bags of every single person who's yield farming in that pool, right? So, which to me, and I have concrete examples of meme tokens basically that have used this system on the FUX exchange to add value to their tokens. It's a reason not to sell your token, and it might even be at high enough APRs when you're talking over 200%. To me, that's a reason to buy a token.
100%. I was just about to talk about the downstream effects of when the yield is so good, you actually put bid pressure on tokens.
Yep.
And then if the pool operator is creative and thoughtful, he can create the ratios in a proper way to really magnify the pump on portions of the index versus other portions that's more acting like the power unit. So my mind's already going so far to think about what's the appropriate ratio to get the most leverage on certain elements of an index, and while the other portion of the index is doing all the hard work and pushing the price forward, and then all these other things can be leveraged on that and go much higher in price, for example. And then you create these arbitrage opportunities within a pool itself, which is pretty amazing.
And you could have more than one pool that's incentivized with a particular token, right? Who's to say you could have the solid index, it has the Axis token, the Fire token, Solid X, etc. But each of those could have their own pool that could be separately incentivized. Nope has what's called a gauge pool, which is just the term they use for incentivized on the FUX exchange right now. Why can't the Axis token have a pool like that as well? People,
Well, you
can
got
have
to be
some
careful
choice.
because you don't want to give everybody the playbook before we even launch.
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, secrets.
Well,
Secrets.
and that's where you mentioned that whales can work together, and within a community that may be true. But on Ethereum, there was this thing called balancer wars, and it actually got pretty heated up and a lot of attention because some people were early to discover this idea of bribe efficiency, or the idea that you could buy votes and direct emissions to your pool, and there was math attached to it, right? And so you had people that understood this, and that took advantage of it to a point where it was getting the attention. It was turning some heads. But one of the ideas I really like to promote within the PulseChain community, because we have so many awesome communities participating, is the ability to work together to maintain the APR in a pool. So obviously you have the high APR, which attracts liquidity, and then some people get, as Richard Hart says, butthurt because their pool gets so much liquidity and their APR is going down. But this is where you can have the top liquidity providers in a community understand that there is a number attached to buying those votes, and whether you have everybody participate to a certain degree, that way maybe they put in 0.5% of their liquidity position as a bribe, and those incentives are coming out, and they're returning yield above and beyond what you're paying for those votes. And that's where your liquidity grows, but also your APR gets maintained, is when people start to work together and understand that the system, using it the way it's designed, essentially.
There's almost like limitless possibilities when you're talking about pools working together and all the different configurations you can create. Simple one would be, if you had each of the solid index tokens paired in with each sub community. So you had a sub community pool that involved the Atropa team guys and all their stuff that they like, or the P copies, or the Tangang guys, and so that you have these different connecting points that can come on and off at specific times to create different outcomes for the whole network.
Well, think of this, Axis. Those LP tokens on the Fox Exchange, they're actually tokens, right? And they're nameable. They can have a ticker, and you can decide what the ticker is. So you can pair LP tokens. You could have the solid index token that represented all the coins inside it, and you could pair that with another token or another community or another community's LP token if you wanted, right? Like all these, or you could even do it on a different exchange. You could take the solid index LP token, we'll say it's called the solid index token, and you could pair that with something on 9inch. It is possible, and it's fungible. It's not it's how they're meant to be used. So I think that's something people haven't explored that much, but it's totally doable. And we have some examples of that on the Fox Exchange already. Like they talk about the Prime Fox token, which is actually an LP token. It's the 80% Fox, 20% Pulse token. And it's in multiple pairs, and you can buy it and sell it like it was just a regular token, but you can also break it down into its components at any time if you choose.
Yeah, quick question about that. How does the Prime Fox token track the value of the underlying assets in your experience?
Very closely. There's, maybe somebody set up a bot. There tends to not be a good arbitrage opportunity there. Have you had a different experience, Yellow Cake? I think that's what I've seen. It's pretty much spot on.
With the sorry, which token?
With Prime Fox being composed of, you said it was PHUX, 80%, 20% Pulse, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a direct correlation once people understand the idea between the ability to direct a vote and how much it would cost. Well, okay, so I'm getting off on
well, just the value of the tokens is the question, though, right? Like is one Prime Fox token worth proportionate its value in Fox and Pulse?
Yeah, I think it's pretty reasonably pegged. Yeah.
Probably somebody's botting that one just because it's a big pool. There's like millions of dollars, but like not to say that there wouldn't be arbitrage opportunities for something like the solid index token if it was put onto different exchanges. Like, man, I would have that on my list to watch because that could come up, but the market, would decide, and quickly the market would have bots that would decide, I think, on something with that much money that was attached to it. Because there's definitely going to be something that people pick up on.
Because it's so unexplored, and doing it to the degree of like 4 tokens deep like that, it's gonna definitely have inefficiencies early on, which is why as an operator, there would be a need for probably a bot of some kind to try to make sure that this arbitrage opportunity didn't get out of hand, especially if there's a shitload of liquidity there. Because in my own experience, I've actually experienced this where I took the where you can see PulseChain tokens cross the bridge to Ethereum, have a market, and if that market isn't being watched that closely, I mean, the price discrepancy can get pretty drastic. And I've seen examples of a coin get like a 50% difference in price, and people would literally bridge out to Ethereum, snipe up that coin, bridge it back in, and dump it.
Yep. Or vice versa, right? From Ethereum to PulseChain, that opportunity is there sometimes too.
Of course.
I mean, just on the topic of arbitrage, like we do have one interesting arbitrage opportunity that is tied largely to how 2FUX, or integral to how 2FUX gets its value as a protocol, and that's by accruing as much voting power as possible. And one of the mechanisms that's built in to the protocol is this sort of built-in arbitrage incentive when the prime 2FUX token, which is a derivative wrapper token that represents the prime FUX coming into the protocol, that becomes protocol owned. Like it's a one-way mint, so user would put up some prime FUX or FUX tokens which get converted into prime FUX, and it mints the prime 2FUX token, which essentially is a representation. It's a liquid representation of that prime FUX that is now protocol owned. So the interesting thing with that is there's a market that would likely develop with a close peg, and here's why: is because the minting ratio is very close to 1-to-1 on the FUX protocol. So if the price of prime 2FUX, and it does have a value proposition, which I'll get into after, but if the value of prime 2FUX increases above the price of prime FUX, then there's an incentive to buy prime FUX off the market, go and mint prime 2FUX, and sell it on the market for the difference, for that arbitrage. And if the price becomes lower, if prime 2FUX price becomes undervalued, there is an incentive to buy it off the market for the staking purposes, because the APR is significantly higher for staking the derivative version on 2FUX than the native staking on Fux.io. And that's where the market price becomes too undervalued. It just makes mathematical sense to buy it up and to stake it. The market or the value proposition on the prime 2FUX token itself has essentially 3 revenue streams to it. I'll just touch it on briefly, but essentially, like, you're going to get the same native rewards you would from staking on Fux.io, because those are now mapped to the protocol, which we then map to the users. But then the stakers of the prime 2FUX also get the lion's share of a protocol revenue. So there's a 25% of the revenue from the LP stakers are shaved off and redistributed to the 20% to the stakers of the prime 2FUX token. So right now there's an incentive, and then 4% to the lockers of the 2FUX token. So there's an incentive right away out of the gate to participate either solely as a prime 2FUX staker to benefit from the real yield, the protocol revenue, but also as a liquidity provider to have your pause and all these different moving parts to get the most robust experience. And then we have a built-in compounder option. But then the third stream for the prime 2FUX stakers is you have an additional trickle of 2FUX tokens as well. So all these 3 components add up to an APR that on our DevNet was close to 100% more APR than the native staking on Fux.io. But then if that's not enough, there's an additional benefit, is that you're always easily liquid. So the key for this vote escrowed system, the whole point of the vote escrowed was that you would lock things up for a certain period of time to get an increased voting power. And that's how it works on Balancer V2. and on Flux.io. So if you lock up to a year, you're going to get the most, or with a year lock, you're going to get the most voting power, the most bang for your buck. So instead, Flux.io takes that burden, is always max locking these Prime Pux tokens to get the most voting power. But then you as the user get a derivative token where you can stake, but you also can unstake at any time and you're instantly liquid. You could do anything you could expect to do with a liquid token. Like you could provide liquidity, you could market sell it, you could, send it from wallet to wallet, right? So that's one of the other primary advantages that incentivizes this growth and this flywheel of the Flux.
Did I catch that right? That like the Flux token could be locked up for a year, but the 2 Flux token is still liquid.
Yeah, the prime 2 Flux token is liquid. It's because you're getting a wrapper derivative token that is not locked. So the protocol locks up, takes that burden for you, and issues you the prime 2 Flux derivative, and that's the only way they're created is by the minting process. So in so doing, it's always growing this protocol owned portion. And that's how we could see getting up to those Aura type.
Does the Prime 2 Flux have to be like, I guess, redeposited to free up that collateral? Unwrapped, I guess.
So it's a one-way mint. So that's in that respect, it can never be sold.
So it's locked in forever.
It's locked in forever, and that's in the code. So users,
that makes sense though, because then it keeps the system flowing in one direction.
Exactly.
That's how it has to be. Yeah.
And this is where it could get interesting with the whole larger PH ecosystem is that, as more and more gets locked away,
this is so funny, man. In my own experience, the dev, sorry to cut you off. It's just so, I'm having my mind blown as we're talking. In my own experience in dev, we're finding that one-way directional movement because it's how life and nature is. You don't go backwards in age. Things move forward. And so like to go into like a social experiment and it becomes for the benefit of the community, to not be able to go back on that is an important piece of how this system is going to grow out, right? Indefinitely. Anyway, sorry to now if we can rewind.
Oh no, absolutely. And what's exciting is that like I'm gonna say PulseChain community is special, but we do have a special opportunity starting out where we're starting here, and the fact that Flux was an airdrop, a project to the community to begin with. We have a different cohort of people and a set of people where I think there's a lot of potential to really lock up an immense amount of these tokens, which just continually adds value to the stakeholders, to the people that get to do the things. Like right now, the big thing leading into, well, I'm not going to say leading into the it's talking like our bull market is over, but it's certainly going to be a place where people will.
You better watch it there, Yellow Cake.
Yeah. No, sideways for 8 more months, I think, and then we're going to have our blow off top, glorious, euphoric blow off top.
Oh my God! Sorry, Mr. D. There's just so many good, sticky things to talk about here, man. So like it's best to keep things simplified and generalized because we're not playing with it yet, and a lot of people watching the stream are going to be hands-on anyways, which explains why the demo makes a lot of sense. But before we get to that part, if you wouldn't mind, let's just segue shortly here. We'll do like a quick, maybe like 10-minute segment where I just like ask the quick questions. I just want like 2-3 sentences max on your guys' opinion on these questions. So
let's do it.
We've gone through the sacrifice set for 2 Flux. We went through different pool and breakdowns and how they can interplay with each other. We talked about what a good incentive structure looks like, and you're talking about 3 different lanes of revenue, and then potentially other layers built on top of it outside of just the 2 Flux protocol from other third-party developers. Now let's talk about what makes, this is away from 2 Flux now, guys. We're going to take a 10-minute segment. What makes a good narrative? Fast, you want to answer that first?
Yeah, no, it's got to be exciting. It should be, with this community, it seems like it should be offensive or perhaps phallic themed in some way. We have evidence of that, and it should have actual utility. I think that is in the end, when the dust settles, there should be utility to the narrative. though that doesn't seem to necessarily be the case in the beginning.
I mean, it is. I mean, look at what's happening with 9-inch farms. Like, you had the Axis token, which was just simply a minted token. And I mean, most of the value came off chain. So the utility was in the educational process of teaching people about liquidity and chain analysis. But that wasn't built in on chain necessarily. But you're talking about, from a tokenomics and chain level utility, you know, where's the earning potential? I keep talking about earning potential. Now that's real utility in a coin.
For sure. Yeah. And I think, like, you know, the Axis token is sort of on a journey. Like, it might be moving from, you know, the meme segment to the store of value segment. And when you look at things like having multiple farming opportunities, having different ways you can earn yield off a token, like that, to me, that's utility, right? It doesn't matter whether the code of the token does the thing that gives you yield or not, just that the token is involved and key to that process, right? Mm-hmm. So that's where, you know, 2Fux is going to lend that utility to multiple other communities, and where we want to be at the forefront of that and have our token 2Fux itself involved in these processes. So the 2Fux token itself becomes a yield generating token in one fashion or another, be it from bribes, be it from involvement with different pools, with different communities. Though all those sorts of things are, you know, on the page for what would make a good narrative. And I think, like, yield isn't a new concept, but like focused yield, controlling the yield, controlling your votes, right? Votes turning into money.
Aligning like, incentives is a key one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, aligning incentives. And I think Yellowcake, you said it best with how do you describe 2Fux again as social aggregation, right?
Mm-hmm. That is the best way to say it. So then Yellowcake, in all your experience from the mining days to developing protocols and being involved in different sectors of crypto, what to you makes a good narrative?
Well, it really depends on the crowd. But for me, like having been there from the early stages and going through, you know, we used to hear the term the wild west, and it really was, right? Like, as the saying used to say, like, even a monkey could make money in the bull market, but it was, you know, the hard part was hanging on to it, right? Not giving it all back. And so
it reminded me of those Litecoin miners I bought at $50, and I was mining Dogecoin at the top last cycle.
Well, and you lucked out at that, because I just, like I said, I hung on to my miners as long as I possibly could, and I just to have them, to turn them on, like I'd flip the big breakers, and just everything would buzz up, and it had that, you know, had that feeling in your head,
that energy,
and then so finally I sold the damn things, and then literally, like, you know, it felt like the next day Dogecoin was a thing, and they would have been gold if I would have hung on to them.
So do you think it's just like billionaires makes a good narrative, or like what is it?
Well, no, like that. So where I was getting at is the maturation of the space. Like, the good narrative, like for me, is that, you know, I've long held to the idea that, you know, concentration of your resources to create your wealth, and then the diversification to protect it. And it's really a stage that I think the mindset in the investment, now that the space is maturing and it's not as easy to find these 100x returns, that we want to protect our wealth. And this is the narrative for me, is that showing people and teaching people that there's ways you can still make a go of it. Sure, it's easier to make money if you have money, but there's still ways to make really good returns, sustainable returns that are a lot safer and a lot easier to predictable to get to where you want to get, without taking these crazy risks where, let's face it, most people lose. So I guess if the narrative, I'm kind of like, you're serious. When you're done playing around and you want to make some money and not lose it, then you come talk to me.
Yeah, this is the end point, guys.
Yeah.
You know, this is what we're focused on. This is what I'm like too. Memes aren't my thing. I mined Dogecoin and dumped it for Hex last cycle. Memes aren't my thing. And I also understand tokenomics and rate of emissions. Like 75 cent, 79 cent Doge was not sustainable. My 10 little miners were making $1,000 a day. So that part of it is knowing and coming from that background as well, which is why the emissions and the supply dynamic on these protocol coins are so important to me, and understanding them deeply, which is beyond the scope of just this chat. But thank you for those answers, gentlemen. Opinions on the P copies on PulseChain, and then you can roll that into the P-die pegging narrative.
Nice. Well, that's certainly a fun thing to talk about. And to me, that's about it. Like, I'm willing to say this is interesting. It's a good part of the community. Like, yeah, I hope PDI hits $1 because then that would be billions of dollars magically appearing on the Pulse chain. So that would be great. But like, that's never going to happen. And there's so many reasons. It's really not hard to attack, but the community is interesting. The commitment is interesting. And the fact that people are building on top of that concept is interesting. So I wish them all the luck. I hope they get to $10 because I see that as being equally likely.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I'm not going to focus on that as the thing that's going to save us all.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, I get crusty about certain, not missed opportunities, but I had the foresight to see this kind of, I'm going to call it for what it is, this kind of shit happening, because like human behavior is a funny thing, and when you got something that like these stables that were copied over, I had foresight to buy up a whole bunch when they were almost free right at the beginning, and I'm just pissed off at myself for selling them too early. So I'm not on the train. Like, I do like to look at things objectively, and I see the tens of millions of dollars of liquidity there. So it is a thing, but I'm not buying this narrative of the pegging, and I think it's ridiculous personally.
Okay. You guys probably want to know my opinion, huh?
Yeah.
So
tell us.
For me, I'm pretty sure PDI has already done a 5,000x. So if it just does a 2x, that does a 10,000x. And so beyond the scope of that pump, you got to really wonder, with the amount of holders and the amount of value that would create from people that held PDI pre-fork, and how long would it take before they start jumping over to our chain to dump like crazy, which would inhibit upside potential. That said, there's a lot of interesting narratives out there, and chain analysis that's been done that may point in the direction of higher prices on PDI for longer. We all know that markets, especially crypto markets, are irrational, and I can disclose that I do hold PDI because I think it's got upside potential. And I think that the burned liquidity between it and Atropa, being 3 billion of these things burned, and the OA holding potentially 10 to 12 billion of them, really only leaves a remainder of 5 billion to 7 billion maybe in user hands. And
when you say the OA, do you mean the Hex OA?
I guess the connection point would be to the SAC wallets.
Okay. And that gives you confidence, not fear.
It does not give me fear because I'm not heavily invested in it.
Okay.
So for me, I have enough in it that if it even just goes to 10 cents, that was an amazing trade. But if it goes, if it drops in half, which it's done all the time, it's not going to, it's no difference to me.
Like, with the Hex OA not in good faith, like, take that PDI when it hits, 47 cents and use that to buy Hex. Wouldn't that be in the best interest?
I hope so, because I have a lot of bags over there too. So I think for me, it's more of like diversifying into strong narratives and communities and having a piece of each one, so that in the event that 2 out of 3 hit or 3 out of 5 hit, the gains are so outgonna outweigh the losses. So it's more about having a reasoned, measured approach to investing on PulseChain and sticking to your guns on it. Yellow Cake just talked briefly about how he didn't and he regrets it, and so
for sure,
I'm gonna hold it.
Yeah. He sees the future sometimes, that guy, but he thinks a lot. So sometimes he thinks too much. There he is. We're just talking about you.
I guess I'm running out of battery on one of my devices here, so I might have to drop out early or find another.
Well, we're at an hour, so we can wrap here soon. Last question: favorite RH ticker? Go ahead, Yellow Cake.
Give me an index ticker that has all the RH in one basket, and that'd be my favorite because I can't segregate them. To me, they're all one token now.
Yep. And then do you see Two Fucks as playing a vital role in that?
Well, I see Two Fucks as being able to offer potential to people that want to protect one aspect because of the composability of the Balancer V2 pools. It offers a way to mitigate impermanent loss. So certainly there's going to be a lot of opportunity for people that have their favorite token and want to protect the upside potential while still earning yield.
Mm-hmm. And then just lastly, before your battery runs out, honest thoughts on Hex. Where are you at with Hex these days?
I have nothing against it. I'm not telling people they should buy it, but I do think that there's definitely potential for crazy upside swing at some point in time. But I'm not Matty Allen style slinging it. But I have nothing against it. I just don't tell people they should buy it. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Yellow Cake.
Thanks for having me, Axis, and yeah.
It's been a really good one. 783 live watching us right now across X, and 786 on X and YouTube. So not too bad of a showing.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, stop by the Telegram, and I'm looking forward to talking strategies. Axis, I know you got some recipes cooking that are going to go well on the Two Fucks stove. Yeah. All right.
All right. Thanks, man. Fast.
Yep.
Favorite RH ticker, honest thoughts on Hex?
When I say favorite RH ticker, I'm going to say the one I see as the most potential from this point, and that's probably PulseX because it's the most underdeveloped. Like, serious, like he didn't follow through with what I felt were the indicated promises, and there's a lot of improvements that could be made there. Now, whether they are made or not is up for grabs. But I see, definitely the most pump potential on PulseX. It's the most undervalued. Even though the valuation may or may not be fair right now. Then as far as Hex goes, I see a future for Hex. I don't think it's a future most people want. I think there has to be big changes. I think Richard knows that. And this is not a popular theory. I think Richard at some point in time will burn the entire Hex OA account. I think that's the future. That's the thing that will fix it. And that's the thing that will change how everybody looks at it and talks about it. That'll make it, in my opinion, actually decentralized. The whole concept of like, oh, hey guys, there's this one wallet that has 95+% of the coins, but it's okay. That only flies in Hexaco. It doesn't fly anywhere else. And that has caused Hex to be gatekept by many communities, by many influencers. And like, I'm not a day one Hexican. I hold some Hex. I'm interested in Hex. But like, that concept has never sat well with me. It's not okay that one guy has 95% of the coins.
Thoughts on BNB having 97% of the coins?
Also not okay. Yeah, that's not decentralization. And BNB, like being
so you're against economic centralization, but you're building a protocol that centrally centrally absorbs economic energy to combine voting power?
Yes.
Because you think that's more of a decentralized way, a social sort of aggregation.
Versus one guy holding 95% of the tokens.
Well, it's definitely an attack vector. There's no doubt about that. No matter what coin has centralized supply, 100%. It's an attack vector. That guy dies or loses the keys or gets scammed or hacked. Like, the whole protocol is destroyed. So I agree.
Or he has a bad day, but it's even just the speculation, right? And really, like, honestly, like, I don't think Richard's going to dump Hex on our heads at any point in time. That seems extremely unlikely. He's proven himself to be solid in that respect. But like, other people look from the outside looking in, that they may not see that, and I can't blame them. So if that problem was gone, right, what's the downside? And like, I've heard the arguments about how the OA protects us and stuff. I think that's all bullshit. I don't think that makes any sense whatsoever. Like, something that protects us from whales coming in and buying up the supply. Like, no, come in and buy up my bags, whales, please. I think that would be fantastic. So if that problem is solved, I think Hex could go to the frickin' moon.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And then I agree with you on the PulseX part. I think PulseX is the least favorite right now. You could say Hex is least favorite, but out of the other three, PulseX has got it's probably the quickest to rubber band once they and I think then there's the part about I think features are being intentionally left off until the right point.
It feels that way.
It's it's so obvious to me. It's like we know Richard's playbook. You can just look at his history. He's an expert marketer and speculator. He knows market sentiment and psychology to a T. He's created the hockey stick on Bitcoin in the past. He knows what's needed and required to create hype events. We just saw a hype event on SolidX. And I didn't learn that myself. I mean, it was an experience, but we saw what was possible on this chain now. This is the kingpin coming out and, getting something happening good positively with the lawsuit, launching new elements of PulseChain every few weeks. He's streaming regularly again. I mean, this is all part of next year, I think. I don't know. Speculation on my part. Seems like it makes a lot of sense to launch all that around the same time. So going to be very, very exciting. I agree with a lot of what you said. I appreciate both you guys that way too. And so, you guys are very sharp, very well put together. Next time I'm going to wear my suit coat. I hope you guys got value here. I know I did. And I hope everyone listening pays attention. Sacrifice ends Thursday night. Hope to see you all tomorrow night on Crypto Ewok and Broke Boy Crypto. Any final thoughts before we take off?
Just like you said, tomorrow is the last day for the sacrifice for people to decide whether they, align their values with things that we find interesting. People might be, they might find that as a worthwhile thing to align themselves with. And the 2FUX protocol, the initial holders will control the majority of the voting power on the FUX exchange, I think, one day in the future. So if that's something that you're interested in as a person, you should take a look at our protocol, come to our Telegram room, talk to us about it. It's complicated, and we didn't go into the deep dive on how everything works. We're willing to do that with people on a one-to-one basis if required. There's going to be a learning curve here, and we're here to help.
And just should mention that the protocol is complete. We've begun the launch process. We're actually in phase 2 of a very few phases here. So we're finished. We're complete, and we're launching. So.
Yeah, this isn't like a 2 years down the road thing. This is like May. In the month of May of 2024, 2FUX will be live.
Cool, man.
I think.
The PulseChain anniversary is coming up, so it would be appropriate time to see some cool stuff coming out of you guys.
It would be a very cool time.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. I hope everyone enjoyed it. We will see you guys tomorrow night. And if you need more information on upcoming events, go to axisalive.com/events. Unnamed says the OA is very shady. That's funny. You're saying Richard's shady. 2 more weeks. 2 more weeks. All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys on the next one. All right.
Cheers.
Thanks, Axis.
Peace.